In this video, we will learn about the date and time formulas in Excel. Let's get started by learning about the day formula. Day function takes date's serial number as input and it gives you the day in the given month. So let me show you how it works. I type day and I hit tab to autocomplete the function. And you can see it takes serial number as input. It only takes one argument. So if I give 41699 as the argument and I hit control enter, this returns 1 because this serial number 41699 represents 1st March 2014. So as you would know, Excel stores date and time as numeric values. Day function would work if you input numeric value as its argument. Now you can also construct a date in some other cell and give it as a reference in day function. So here I have 5th March 2014 in A2, so I can select A2 in day, and when I hit control enter, it gives me 5 because it's the 5th day in March. You can also construct a day within a formula like I've done here. So I'll show you. I have 1, 3 and 2014 in cell A3, A4 and A5. So I can construct a date out of it. I select A3 ampersand and I use backslash ampersand. So what I'm doing is I'm creating a date here, ampersand 2014. Now if you select this entire thing and hit F9, you would see that this represents a date which is 1st March 2014. I hit Control Z to go back and I hit Control Enter, and you can see this works. An important thing to note here is that this gets converted into a text. You can see it's in double quotes, but day function can handle text as well. So let me show you how it does it. I would type the date within double quotes, indicating that this is text. And now when I hit enter, it still works. It is giving me 1 because it is the first day in March. So day function would work if you give serial numbers or if you type the date in text. It would also work if your serial number is an output from some other formula. So if I type today and I hit control enter, it gives 19 because today is 19th May of 2014. So you can see today is a separate function and day would work if you give the input from some other function as well. Since day returns a numeric value, it would also work if you add or subtract a value from it. So in this case, if I add 10 to it and I hit control enter, this gives 29 because today is 19th. So here day function returns 19. I select this function, I hit F9. You can see it returns 19 and then it add 10 days to it, so it gives 29. What happens if I add say 13 days to it? It gives 32. So be cautious that if you add a value, this day function do not return a value higher than 31, but if you do some calculation using it, it can return a value which is higher than 31. So you just be cautious while using it. An important feature about Excel is that it stores dates and time as numeric values, and our function takes that numeric value to give you the hour of that day. So let me show you how that works. I type hour and you can see it takes one argument which is a serial number. So in this case, if I give it a serial number, it would identify the number of hours that has elapsed in that day and it would return that value. So in this case, let me select 12 a.m. and I hit control enter, and it gives me 0 because 12 a.m. is the beginning of the day. So no number of hours have elapsed. Now if I select A3, which is 3 p.m., this gives me 15 because since 12 a.m. 15 hours have elapsed and now it is 3 p.m. So it's 15 hours after midnight and therefore hour gives me 15. Let me show you another example. If I take just 3, Then this gives me 3 because whenever I fail to mention AM or PM, Excel would by default take it as AM. And since this is 3 AM in the date, means 3 hours have elapsed since the day started. So it gives me 3. You can also have a serial number such as this one, which is 41699 decimal point 125. If I take this value and I hit Control Enter, this gives me 3. The reason is that in this numeric value, 1 represents 1 day. So 41699 represents 41699 days after 1st January 1900, and the decimal part represents the time. So in this case, 0.125 represents 3 hours. If this had been 0.5, then this would give me 12 because half of the day has passed. It has 24 hours and half of it has passed, so this returns 12 here. Also, since this function gives me a numeric value, I can use it in calculations. I can add or subtract values to it. So in this case, if I add 10 and I hit enter, this gives me 22 because hour of A5 of this value is 12 and I have added 10 to it. So this gives me 22. Excel stores dates and time as serial numbers, and minute function takes that serial number and gives us the number of minutes that have elapsed in the given day. So let me show you how it works. I type minute, I hit tab to autocomplete the function. You can see it takes one argument, which is the serial number. So in this case, let me give it this serial number A2, and you can see since this is time, Excel stores this time as a serial number. Now when I hit enter, it gives me 0 because as of now it's the beginning of the day, it's 12 AM and no number of minutes have elapsed. Now when I go to A3 and I give A3 as the input, it gives me 30 minutes because in the 15th hour of the day, because you can see it's 3:30 p.m. so it's 15 hours 30 minutes that have elapsed, and in the 15th hour 30 minutes have elapsed, so this gives me 30. If I use A4, then this would give me 20 because this is 3:20, and if you do not specify AM or PM, Excel takes this as AM, and this says that 3 hours have elapsed and 20 minutes have elapsed, so this gives me 20. All these are formatted as date and as time, so you can see the time here, but you can also have a serial number as I have in cell A5, and if I select this cell A5 and I hit enter, this gives me 50 because this serial number 41699 represents a date, and the decimal part, which is 0.41, represents the time. So this says that within this day 0.41 or 41% of the day has elapsed, and within that in the given number of hour, so this represents 9 hours 50 minutes and 24 seconds. 0.41 represents this value, and within this 50 minutes have elapsed, so this gives me 50. Now since minute function gives us a numeric value, we can also add or subtract or do calculation using it. So in this case, I get a value through this formula and I can add 10 to it. So when I hit Control Enter, this gives me 60 because the result I got from minute A5 is 50 and I could add value to it. So you can also use this in calculations. Date function in Excel returns the serial number of a date when we feed in the year, month and the day value in it. So let me show you how this works. I type date, I hit tab to autocomplete the function. In year I type 2014, in month I type 3, and in the day I type 1. So this is 1st March 2014. Now when I Control Enter, you can see that it has given me a date which is 1st March 2014. An interesting thing to note here is that as of now the date format is selected, but if I change this to number, then it returns a serial number, and Excel stores all the dates as serial numbers. The way you display it is the trick of number formatting, but a date would always be represented by a serial number in Excel. So now let's do the same thing here. I'll type 2014 comma 3 comma 1, and now when I hit enter, it gives me the date. Both these values are the same, but since this is in general format, this gives me the serial number, and since this is date format here, this gives me the date of that serial number. Here I manually entered these values, but you can also give cell reference. So here I have these values in A3, B3 and C3. I type A3 for year, for month I type B3, and for day I take C3, and I hit Control Enter, and this would give you the same result. Now you notice that I had keyed in 2014 as the year, but if I only key in 14 and 3 and 1, see what happens. This gives me a date for 1914 and not 2014. The reason is that if you use 2 digits, Excel always interpret as the year in 1900s. So it is always best to use the 4 number year whenever you're working with date function. You can also use negative values in date. So if I use 2014 and as month I give -1 and 1 as the day, see what happens. This gives me 1st November 2013. The reason is that when I type -1, it goes back 1 month in 2013. So if I type say 0 here, see what happens. It gives me 1st December 2013 because I have given the month as 0. But if I give -1, then it goes back 1 month from December and it gives me 1st November 2013. Similarly, I can go overboard and give a number which is higher than 12 for months. So in this case, if I type 13, which is not a valid month number, Excel would go ahead 1 month and give me the date in 2015. So in this case it gives me 1st January 2015 because I gave 13 here while the month can only be represented in 12s. Similarly, I can do this for date as well. So I have 2014, I give month as 1 and I give date as -10. Now since -10 is not a valid date, Excel would go back 10 days in December and gives me the date of 21st December 2013. See what had happened had I given 0 here. If I give 0 here, it gives me 31st December 2013, but since I'm giving -10, it goes back 10 days from 31st December and gives me 21st December. Similarly, I can go overboard and give a day number which is higher than 31. So in this case, let me give it 41, and when I press Control Enter, see it gives me 10 February 2014. The reason is that 41 is not a valid day number. It could only be up to 31, but since Excel can make the calculations, it goes over 10 days in the next month. Since these are serial numbers, you can do calculations using this. So if I have 2014, the month is 1 and the day is 41 as I just used, and if I add 10 days to it, Excel would give me 20 February 2014 as the date because it can add 10 days to it. So if you go back here and change this to general number formatting, you can see it's 41,690, and if I do not add this 10 to it, then it would be in the general formatting 41,680. So all it has done is added 10 serial numbers, which is equivalent to 10 days. Date value, as the name suggests, gives the value for a date, as Excel stores all the dates and times in numeric value. This is the formula that will give that numeric value. So here I'll show you how it works. I type date value, I hit tab to autocomplete the function, and you can see it takes one argument, which is date text. This means that you have to key in the date in text format. It could be in double quotes. So let me show you how this works. In double quotes, I type 01-03-2014 and I hit enter, and this gives me 41699, which is the value for 1st March 2014. Notice that here I have used 01-03. There are other formats that I'll just show you that can also be used, because Excel recognizes this as one of the date formats. The other thing to notice is that it depends on your system's clock settings. So this time it's returning the value for 1st March 2014 because my system's settings use DDMMYYYY format. But if your system uses MMDDYYYY, then it would take this as 3rd January 2014. So be cautious of your system setting, and the formula would take the settings from your system's clock and then return the value. Now let me show you some other formats that date value accepts. So you can also use slash instead of dash that I just used in the cell right above this. And when I hit enter, this gives me the same value, because this is also one of the formats that Excel understands. Similarly, there is this third format in which the month is typed in letters, alphabets, and this is what you get. So I have written 01-March-2014, and this gives me the same result because this is also one of the formats that Excel understands. So any format that Excel understands as date would give you the right result. Till now I have manually typed these values, but I can also use cell references. So here I have the year in A3, month in B3, and day in C3. So I would use C3 ampersand, and I have introduced slash ampersand. The month, again I would use ampersand, and I introduce the slash in quotes, ampersand, the year, and I close this. Now if I select this part and I hit F9, you can see this is giving me the same thing as this one. So you can use cell references as well to have date value give you the value of a date, and I hit enter and I get the same result. If you do not have the year, or if you do not key in the year, then Excel would take the current year by default based on your system's clock settings. So since this is 2014 when I'm recording this video, I've typed in 1st March, but I have not given it the year, but it would still return me the same value because it takes the year as the current year. And if I do not give it a date, so in this case if I type March 2014, it would take the first day of that month. So in this case if I hit enter, it gives me the same result, which is 41699, because if I do not give it a day, it takes 1st March 2014 and returns its value. Today function returns the serial number of the current date, and this function does not take any argument. So if I type today here, you can see it takes no argument, and if I can just close the parenthesis and hit Control Enter. When I do this, this gives me the current date. Today is 24th May 2014, so this is giving me this date. An important thing to note here about today function is that this is volatile. So if you have a huge worksheet where you have applied today function and you do any calculation, this would get recalculated again and again, and this may slow down your workbook. Also, if you make some changes and this get recalculated, this would display the current date. So if today it's 24th May, but if I close this workbook and open it again tomorrow, then this would get recalculated and would display the current date, which is tomorrow's date. You can use today function to add or subtract value to it because it is giving you a serial number. So in this case let me type it again. So I type today and I say plus A2. and I hit control enter, and this gives me 3 June, because that is 10 days after 24th May, as I have added 10 days to it. Today is a good function to use if you want to identify the day, month or year of the current date. So in this case I just write day in front of today date, today function, and I hit control enter, and this gives me 24, which is current date because it's 24th May today. So similarly you can do it for month. Since this takes a serial number, you get the serial number from today function, and you hit control enter, and this gives you 5, which is the 5th month of the year based on today's date. And you can again do the same thing with year function, and I hit control enter, and this gives me 2014, which is the current year. Now is one of those functions in Excel that does not take an argument. This function gives the serial number of the current date and time when you type now in any of the cells. So let me show you how this works. I type now and I close the parenthesis. So this is how you use now function. I do not even need to give this closing parenthesis. I can just type enter and this would work. I hit enter, and you can see this gives me 41783.4717. This is the serial number for 24th May, and as of now this is 11:19 here. So this is giving the serial number of the current date and time. Now you can use different formats to display what you want. You may want to display only the current date, so you type now and hit enter, and this displays only the current date, which is 24th May. You can see that if I select this cell and I go to the formatting, number formatting section, it shows date as the current format. From here I have selected date, so in this case it is only showing the current date. I may want to display only the current time. In this case, as I said, it's 11:20 here, so it is showing the date and time both because I have chosen custom number formatting. Now this format to display both date and time is not available in this drop down list, so you go to more number formats. The shortcut for this is Control+1, and this opens up the format cells dialog box. Within custom, you can see I have selected this format, which is DDMMYY, which gives me the current date, and with after a space I have HHMM, that gives me the current time. I can also go ahead and add AM/PM, so it would give me whether it's AM or PM. So you can use custom number formatting on the same serial number to display the result as you want. Since this gives you a serial number, you can use it in calculations. So in this case I can use it with a number. In this case I have A2 10 here in A2, so I can add this to the serial number returned by now. So now if I hit control enter, this gives me 3rd July 2014, which is 10 days after today's date because I have added 10 to it. So this is how now function works in Excel. A very important thing to remember is that now function is volatile. So if I change anything or if I press F9, it gets recalculated again and again. So if you have a huge spreadsheet and you're using this function, be cautious as a volatile function can slow down your workbook. Weekday function takes the serial number of a date as input, and it gives you the number of days that have elapsed in that week, in the running week. So it would return a number between 1 and 7 because 7 are the number of days in a week, and if 3 days have passed in the current week, then it will return 3. If 4 days have passed, then it will return 4. So let me show you how this works. I type weekday, I hit tab to autocomplete the function, and you can see this takes 2 arguments. First is the serial number, and the other one is return type, which is in square brackets. Square brackets indicate that this is optional. I'll come back to this later. Let me talk about serial number first. As you would know, Excel stores dates and time as serial number. So in this function, we would feed the serial number, and this would give us the number of days that have elapsed in the running week. So here I have a date, and I choose this date A2. Again, to reiterate, this is looking like a date, which is 1st March 2014, but the actual value is a serial number. Now when I hit control enter, this gives me 7, which means that in the week of 1st March 2014, the current week that is running, 7 days has elapsed. But if you go back to the calendar and check, you would notice that this is a Saturday. So we would expect this to return 6, because we in usual have a perception that week starts from Monday and ends on Sunday. So this should be 6, but Excel by default starts the week on Sunday and ends it on Saturday. So by that logic, this gives us 7, because Saturday is the 7th day of the week. But if you do not like it, if you want your Monday to start, if you want your week to start on a Monday, then you can change that. And here is where the optional argument would come in. So here's the serial number. I again choose A2, and as I press comma, you can see this gives me a whole lot of options. It says you should type 1 or select this option if you want Sunday to be the first day and Saturday to be the last day, which is by default the option. If you do not choose anything, it will be the first option. It says choose 2, the second option, or type 2 if you want Monday to be the first day and Sunday to be the last day. And similarly, you have a whole lot of options here. You can explore this, but this is the second one is the option that I want. So I double click on this, it automatically inserts 2. You can manually type it as well, and I hit control enter, and now this gives me 6. Looking at this date, it checks this, it sees that this is a Saturday, and so it returns 6. Now weekday function would also work with dates that are stored as text. So as of now, you see that this says give me the serial number, and here I've said that this date looks like a date, but this is a serial number. But in this case, which is A3, this is not a serial number, this is text. But if your text is formatted in a way that Excel understands that this is a date, which is this format 01 March MAR or MARCH 2014, Excel would understand that this is a date, and you can use this in weekday function. So now if I hit enter, this gives me 7, which is the same result as this, because these two dates are same. But this is not a serial number, this is text. To make this more clear, let me manually type this in the formula. So I type 01 MAR 2014 within double quotes, and now when I hit control enter, this gives me 7. So weekday function can works with serial numbers, dates, as well as text that is formatted in a date format. Network days is a good function to use when you have a start date and an end date, and you want to identify the number of working days between these two dates. So you may have a project which has a specific start date and end date, and you may need to do the staffing, and you need the number of working days. Then this is a good function to use. Let me show you how this works. I type network, I hit tab to autocomplete the function, and you can see it takes 3 arguments: the start date, the end date, and in square brackets we have holidays, which is an optional argument. So in start date, I give it 1st March 2014, which is in cell A3, and as end date I give it as 9th June 2014, which is in cell B3. And I close the bracket and I hit control enter. This gives me 71, as there are 71 working days between these two dates. Network days function is already programmed to exclude weekends, which is Saturdays and Sundays. So these 71 days include days from Monday to Friday between these two dates. Now if you have a list of holidays that is occurring between these two dates, then you can also use the third argument in the function. I hit tab, and you can see there are 3 arguments: start date, end date, holidays. So I take A3 as the start date, B3 as the end date, and here I have a list of holidays. So I select the entire range as my third argument, and I hit control enter, and this gives me 68. The reason is that these 3 holidays are also now excluded from the result. But what if a holiday is also on a weekend? So this formula is pre-programmed to exclude that. So in this case, say 3rd March 2014 is a Saturday, then there would not be a double counting. This would be excluded and the result would be 69, because weekends are anyways excluded from the formula. So if you have a start date, an end date, and a list of holidays, and you need to identify the number of working days between these two dates, then network days function is the way to go. Network Days International is a good function to use when you have a start date and an end date and you want to identify the number of working days between these two dates. This function also gives you the flexibility to specify the weekend. So you can specify that Saturday, Sundays are weekends, so it would not count these weekends in your working days. And within this function, you also have the flexibility to specify some other days as weekends. So if you're working in a geography, say like Middle East, then you would want to specify Friday and Saturdays as weekends. And if you're at some other part of the world where weekends are something other than Saturdays, Sundays, then you can specify that. This function is a variation of a previous function, network days, where you could do the same thing but the weekends were fixed. You could only have Saturdays and Sundays as the weekends. So here you get that flexibility. So now let me show you how to use this function. I type network days international and you can see it takes 4 arguments: start date, end date, weekend, and holidays. So for this example, let me simply use the start date and end date, and I hit Control Enter, and this gives me 71 because there are 71 working days between these two dates, which is 1st March 2014 and 9th June 2014, and this does not include Saturdays and Sundays by default. Now let me show you a variation of this function. So here I specify the same start date and end date, and this gives me a drop down list where I can choose the weekends. So I can specify that Saturday, Sundays are weekends, Sunday or Monday is a weekend, Monday, Tuesday, and so on, or I can specify single days, only Sunday is a weekend. So a lot of people have 6 days a week, working week, so they can specify either Sunday only or Monday only or Tuesday only. So this function gives you that flexibility. In this case, let me have the first option selected, which is Saturdays and Sundays, and the last argument is number of holidays. So if you have certain holidays, either public holidays, national holidays, that occur between these two dates, then you can select that entire range and those would not be counted. And I hit Control Enter, and this gives me 68 because there are 71 days between these two these two dates, and there are 3 holidays. If there is an overlap between a holiday and a weekend, so if for example this holiday lies on a Saturday, then the function does not double count it, it would account for it. Now let me show you another variation of this function. So I have the same start date, end date, and in this case I select Friday and Saturday as my weekend, and I again select the number of holidays and I hit Control Enter, and this gives me 70. The reason is that in now when I do this, in these number of dates I have changed the weekend, so based on that it recalculates again, and this gives me 70 because there are 70 working days between these two dates where it does not count Friday and Saturday and these holidays. Workday is an important function when you have a start date and you have some work that would take you say 100 days to complete, and you want to identify the end date given that there would be weekends, there would be holidays. So if I have a project that starts on this date, which is 2nd March 2014, and it will take me 100 working days and I need to identify the end date of the project, then I can use this function. Let me show you how it works. I first type work day, I hit tab to autocomplete the function. You can see this takes 3 arguments: the start date of your project, the number of days it will take you to complete that project, and if you think that there are holidays, there would be public holidays or national holidays that would occur on the working days, then you can feed that list and this would not count those number of holidays. Since this is in square brackets, this is an optional argument. So let me first show you how to use the first 2 arguments. In start date I give it a 3, which is 2nd March 2014, and in number of days I say 100. I close the bracket, which means that there would not be any holidays between these 100 days, and I hit Control Enter. And this gives me a date 18th July 2014. So this says that if I start my project on 2nd March and if I take 100 days to complete the project, then my project would be done by 18th July. This function does not count Saturdays and Sundays, so that are weekends, and that would not be counted. So given that you have a 5 working days in a week, this is your end date. Now if you have a list of holidays as well, which is very likely, then you would want to exclude those holidays. To do that, I give the start date, I give the number of days, which is 100, and I feed in these list of holidays. So this list I would key this as a range, so C3 to C5. I close the bracket and I hit Control Enter. And this gives me 21st July 2014. You can see that there is a difference of 3 days because all these 3 holidays are occurring on a working day. So therefore it pushes the deadline to 21st. Workday International is a good function to use when you have a start date of a project, when you know how many days it would take to complete the project, and you need to identify the end date. So in this case, let me show you how this works. I type workday.intl, I hit tab to autocomplete the function, and you can see it takes 4 arguments. The first is start date, the other one is number of days, the third one is weekend, and the fourth one is holidays. I'll talk about these last 2 arguments later. Since these are in square brackets, these are optional, so we can leave it out as of now. I feed in a 3 as the start date, which is 2nd March 2014, and 100 as the number of days. I close the parenthesis and I hit Control Enter. And this gives me 18th July. This means that if I start a project on 2nd March 2014 and it takes me 100 days to complete that project, then my project would be done by 18th July, given that Saturdays and Sundays are weekends. So these are off days and these are not counted. Now, what if you have holidays in between? Then you can also account for these holidays. I give the start date, the number of days as 100. You can specify the weekends here. As of now, let me specify Saturday and Sunday as the weekend, and I can key in this list of holidays. So I have given it C3 to C5, which is my list of holidays, and now when I hit Control Enter, this gives me the final date, which is 21st July. You can see that since these 3 days are occurring on a working day, the final date gets pushed by 3 days. So earlier it was 18th July, but now since I've given these 3 holidays, it becomes 21st July. Now what if you work in a geography where weekend is something other than Saturdays and Sundays? So you can use Workday International function to account for that as well. I select Workday International, I give A3 as the start date, B3 as the number of days, and here I have this entire list where I can select what weekend it should be. So as the default is Saturday and Sunday, you can select Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, and any days. If you are in Middle East, you may want to select Friday and Saturday. If you are working with a company which only has one day weekend, then you can select Sunday only, or Monday only, Tuesday only. So in this case, let me select Friday and Saturday, which is 7, and the list of holidays, which is here, and I hit Control Enter. And this gives me 22nd July. Since we are starting our project on 2nd March and we are considering that Fridays and Saturdays are weekends, then my project will end on 22nd July. Now a very interesting feature to note about Workday International function is that you can also identify the end date if you work in a part-time job. So in a part-time job, maybe you work only on say Mondays and Wednesdays, and then you need to identify the end date. Then you can do that. Just go to the weekend section, and here you will have to manually type something in double quotes. So I would type 0, so it works this way. I would type 0 for a working day and 1 for a day which is not working, and it always starts with Monday. So if I say my Monday, Wednesday and Fridays are working, then I would type 0 for Monday, For Tuesday I would type 1, for Wednesday I would type 0, for Thursday 1, for Friday 0, and for Saturday Sunday 1, and I would close this. Again, to take you through it, 0 are working days and 1 are days which are not working. So now in this case I have 0 for Monday which is working, 1 for Tuesday which is not working, 0 for Wednesday which is working, 1 for Thursday which is not working, 0 for Friday which is working, and Saturday Sunday are 1 which is not working. Now I hit Control Enter, and this gives me 22nd October. So if I'm in a part-time job where the number of working days are not continuous, Monday, Wednesday, Friday, or say Monday and Fridays, Mondays and Wednesdays, then you can use this formula in the weekend section. You can manually type it in double quotes. So this is how workday function works in Excel. I hope you found this useful. Thank you and have a nice day.